Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of All Aware Podcast, where we help you understand the important issues around you. Recently, we've talked a lot about politics, current global events, and government actions that seem to threaten the core principles of the United States. I hope our episodes have shed some light on these topics. With that said, the program you're currently watching, All Aware Podcast, is getting ready to transition back to more spiritual growth, self-discovery, paranormal, and esoteric topics that we were originally founded on. So to wrap up the month, the actually the few months of programs we've done on geopolitics and things like that, we couldn't ask for a better person to close this out than RodgerFriedman, who is the author of Erasing America. So stay tuned to All Aware Podcast with nathanroshawn. We'll be right back with author RodgerFriedman.
From the corners of the internet to the wave signals transmitting through your brain, you are now sinking into All Aware. Preparing transmission signals. Stand by.
Silent scan.
Broadcasting off the grid in Central Texas. This is the All Aware Podcast.
Thank you.
And welcome back to All Aware. I'm Nathan Roshawn, and tonight we have RodgerFriedman, a physical conservative and former senior vice president of Morgan Stanley Wealth Management, on the program. Rodger is a chartered retirement planning counselor. He brings a clear-eyed, no-nonsense perspective to his work. He has a new book called Erasing America, Broken Politics, Broken Country. And it is a call to action for concerned Americans to take charge and restore the nation. Rodger was a New Yorker turned Floridian. He brings wealth of experience and insight from his extensive career and his personal observations. In addition to his writing, he is actively supporting charities for first responders, children, military, and families. So without further ado, welcome, Rodger. How are you, sir?
Nathan, I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Great, no problem. Thank you for coming aboard All Aware today. I guess to get started, let's just get a little bit about you. Now, you were a senior vice president of Morgan Stanley Wealth Management. So from there to writing this book, how did we get here?
Well, I left Morgan Stanley around 10 years ago. Went to a smaller wealth management firm where I'm a managing director, and I'm not retired yet. But over the last specifically 3 years, I have seen very, very troubling things going on in this country, both at the federal level and many of what we call the blue states. And, there's a guy by the name of Ron White, and his famous line is, "I know I have the right to remain silent. I just don't have the ability." Well, Nathan, I didn't have the ability to keep my mouth shut because, each Sunday, I would sit down with the various media and I'd look at what blew my top for the last week, and I'd start writing an email to my friends, my colleagues, my family. I called it my Sunday memo. And I spent about a page just saying all the nutty stuff going on with the federal government and the blue states. And everyone said, "I love this. This is not enough. Keep going." So it morphed from one page to around 1,500 words. I started doing it every Sunday. I renamed it the Equal Opportunity Times. And I just wrote this morning, number 81. So
Wow, nice.
but the first 46 of them became this book, Erasing America, Broken Politics, Broken Country.
Great. That's awesome. So I have ordered your book, but I haven't read it yet.
I would have sent you a I would have sent you an autographed copy,
Oh, well, that's still an option.
for
It's
your famous bookshelf.
right, exactly. Yeah, we were talking about that off the podcast there. I want to create that bookshelf again from my uncle, my grandpa's
Right.
house. But um, so what? So I guess let's get into kind of like when you were writing these letters and stuff, what were some of the first things that you were witnessing and making yourself aware of that was concerning to you?
Well, I remember, there are three letters in the English language that when you put them together in a row, it makes you feel dirty and you just want to take a shower. Those three letters are AOC. Okay.
Mm,
Taken apart, they're fine, but put together, they make me feel dirty when I even mention the letters. Anyway, I was
yeah.
reading the media, and here she was, I think it was 2019. She put a bill up, on the House floor, and the bill would have given welfare benefits, educational benefits, Social Security benefits, Medicaid benefits to everyone, no matter their immigration status.
Mm,
So I stopped for a moment and said, okay, so if someone manages to sneak across the border, we now have to pay them a universal income. We have to pay for their health, medical, dental. We have to give them education. We have to give them housing. We are going to obviously tax the rich because and I know they're not paying their fair share. And I'm looking at this, I'm saying, this bird brain, this asshat wants to bankrupt America and have 25 million people come in who don't belong here. And that's okay with her. I think she should go back to bartending personally. But when I saw that, my legs trembled, my blood pressure went up, I almost spilled my coffee. Does that answer your question?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that would be a good first indicator. And to kind of piggyback off of that, fast forward to today, and I think that's a huge, huge problem that across the board you can see. And if you're out there, traveling, I know Echo, you travel a lot. You probably see this in your travels. I know I have, where there are millions of these individuals that you're speaking of, and they do, from my experiences and from what I've seen, they do come over and they're putting on social welfare systems, and they are given debit cards and things like that to
And cell phones. Yep.
cell phones, debit cards, and housing. A lot of times, I know in the beginning of this situation, which occurred back, what was that, 2020, around when it started, they were being put up in hotels. And I know I was traveling at the time, and I couldn't even get a room, at a Super 8 for under $300 a night.
Yeah, they put them up in $400 a night rooms in New York hotels.
Yeah.
And, whenever me or any of my colleagues had to travel to New York, we literally couldn't get a room.
Yep, exactly. Yep. I had the same problem. Echo, did you have those issues too, in the 2020s when this situation started with the illegals being able to just walk across the border?
It's funny you mentioned that because I live in a blue state and I travel a lot to blue states, and it seems like it's getting harder and harder to get hotels anywhere.
Yep.
But it's funny you brought up that issue, because I was going to ask Rodger if he'd ever heard of J.J. Carroll and the documentary that he has coming out, where he just went to around the country, but he focused on Chicago, on the south side of Chicago, where they're they're giving the Venezuelans and the other immigrants that came in food, clothing, money. You can get on a warm bus and eat your dinner. And a block away, the people, the citizens of Chicago who are homeless, can't even get into that facility. So it's in my mind, it's all by design. And when they stop giving them all these freebies, that's when things are probably going to take a downturn.
Yeah, it's a horrid situation, Echo. And I remember reading about 4 or 5 weeks ago. I don't remember if it was Colorado or Washington or Colorado or Oregon, and they were talking about the fact that they were curtailing city services to be able to move the budget monies over to housing illegals. So the community centers were going to be open only 4 days a week instead of 5. The Department of Motor Vehicles was cutting their hours, and numerous community benefits were being cut so that the money can go toward illegals. And I just shook my head, and I will not travel to these blue states. There's nothing that can get me to Oregon, Colorado, Washington State. I won't go back to New York City anymore. Vermont, as long as Bernie's there, I'm not going there either. Pick Chicago, the list goes on and on. I don't need to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to go there for work, and
I get it.
I've noticed. I'm in California and I grew up here, so I've seen it go from very conservative to very liberal, but I still don't believe it's as liberal as they tell us. But Seattle's probably the worst. Portland, they've started to clean up some, but you're right. I don't have anything to do in New York, and I don't plan on trying to get that way at all.
Right.
Yeah. So would you say, is the Biden administration destroying the republic, or did it happen before that?
I want you to know I could not have said it better. The path to socialism and anti-constitutionalism and the march away from states' rights is characteristic of everything that's going on in the Biden administration. Metaphorically, I think the Department of Education should be burned down, not physically, but metaphorically. I think it should be closed. The Supreme Court just handed a victory several weeks ago. The SEC cannot make laws. That is the purview of Congress. Okay.
Yes.
And a lot of these executive departments are making laws, and they don't have the legal right to do so. Okay.
Yep.
So I'm a great believer. You remember when Trump came in, he said that for every new regulation, we're going to kill 2 old regulations. And what I read is it was actually a higher number, like 3 or 4 old ones bit the dust for every new one. I wish that had happened under the Biden administration, but that's a fool's errand.
Yeah. Right. And there's a lot of overregulation, there's a lot of overreach, and it's hard, it's tough to believe, but I would even preface this is true within the government, but like 8 out of 10 people, it may be slightly lower, but 8 out of 10 people don't know what the 3 bodies of government are if you ask them on the street. and I'm assuming this is true of people that serve in the government as well, because you are seeing a lot of this overreach from different branches. You have the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. And executive just enforces laws. There's people in the executive branch that are trying to make laws. You have people in the legislative branch or judicial branch trying to make laws, when the judicial branch is just there to interpret law, right? So we're seeing a lot of that. I've seen a lot of that recently.
And have you noticed, Biden came out, I think 48 hours ago, he wants to revamp the Supreme Court simply because the liberal Democrats, the progressives, don't agree with the decisions.
Yeah.
Okay. So they want to institute, term limits, and they want to pack the court, with Democrats. And the only reason they want to do that is because finally there's conservative majority and they are coming out with opinions that the Democrats don't like.
Yeah. So, so what do you think? This to me seems like it's more of a kind of global problem where the Democratic Party is no longer just dealing with um, topics that are within our country. It seems like there's like an influence from out of this country in that party that is kind of taken over and is making it more of a globalist party, in my opinion. How would you kind of
The
respond to that?
globalists like Soros and all of those people that meet in where do they meet in Switzerland?
Yeah, Switzerland, or what's the other one with the D? Davos, or
Davos.
yeah,
Davos.
Davos.
Yes.
Yeah, yep,
Yes, I'm in favor of making a impenetrable bubble around Davos the next time and not letting any of them out. The problem is these people have resources that are insane, billions and tens of billions of dollars at their disposal. And they would like nothing more than a global socialist order where the methods of production are all owned by the government,
yep,
and everyone works for the government. Have you noticed under Biden, go back to COVID, the only companies, the only stores that were allowed to remain open were the gigantic ones, the Walmarts, the Kohl's, the Safeways, so on and so forth. But all of the mom and pops were closed.
yep,
And there's a reason for that, because the government can't control the moms and the pops. There's too many millions of them, but they can control 50 or 100 or 500 ultra large companies. And that's who they want. And in return, those ultra large companies make huge contributions. Did you see in the last 48 hours, 6 million subscribers to Netflix have canceled their subscriptions because Netflix supposedly just gave Kamala Harris 7 million for her campaign?
wow. No, I had not heard that bit of news yet.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
And I would
insane.
be
that
the
would make
next one to cancel my subscription, although my wife might leave.
that would actually make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because the Obamas have a huge stake in Netflix now, and
exactly.
they what were the last two movies they did? Leave the World Behind, and
Yeah,
I think the Civil War one.
yeah,
And Leave the World Behind was a Netflix one, and that was that had a lot of symbolism in it.
Well, Echo, I remember years ago, Obama came out with, I think it was 2 books that I actually read before the elections. And I would say probably, I could safely say 99% of the people that voted for Obama never read his books. They didn't know anything about him. He was a good-looking black fella from Chicago. It's
yep,
time that we had an African American president. He's a senator, so he must know things. He actually had no experience other
yep,
than being a community organizer, and he was one of the worst presidents in the history of this country.
yep.
And he was voted for because he was an African American. And my greatest fear now is that Kamala Harris will be voted for because not only is she an African American, she's a woman. And those are not good reasons to vote for somebody.
No, no, not at all. Well, I would hope that, and this might just be a hope, that people are starting to see such turmoil in the country that they'll awaken a little bit. And I know Echo and I have been trying to have episodes recently on this to try to help bring awareness to people so that they'll wake up, because it's to the point where it's like almost the point of no return. I hate to say that, but I mean, heck, we just had a former president of the United States almost assassinated just weeks ago, at a rally. I would hope that would be kind of the last straw to awaken people to something's wrong here. And if you look back in history, and I think I said this on another episode, but if you look back in history in our country, who has been assassinated or attempted to be assassinated? I mean, it's always someone trying to to change
Make
the
change.
make change for the better
Yeah.
for the
Well,
people.
Nathan, and I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Never underestimate the stupidity of the American voter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
You know, I always have to ask when Nathan and I do shows together, because it sounds like through the banking system, I'm sure that you woke up to the fraud in the Federal Reserve and what happened in 1913 a long time ago. I woke up to all this stuff about 2017. But what's your take on the money system right now? And if you were going to dive into this a little later, Nathan, that's fine. We can go into it later. But I definitely wanted to find out his take on what he thinks going on with the money right now, and it seems like the whole system is they're running this into the ground so they can implement a new system, whether
Yeah.
it's
Well,
a digital currency.
I'm no fan of Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. Since COVID, we have printed trillions and trillions of dollars. Our debt is now approaching 36 trillion, which could never be paid off. And you have inflation as a result of basically too many dollars chasing too little goods. And remember, that's what happened during COVID when interest rates hit 9%. You had supply chain issues, so there was a shortage of goods. And you had all this money, because remember, the IRS, or the Treasury, excuse me, was sending money directly to everyone's bank accounts. Do you remember that?
Mhm.
Yep. Yep.
And what were people doing with them? The only thing they could do is buy stuff on Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Buy
Because they
TVs and
couldn't go to a local store. They were all closed, otherwise they'd be arrested. Okay. But, hyperinflation is real. I see what's going on with interest rates. I buy bonds literally every day of the week, for my clients. So I'm very attuned to where interest rates are, where they might go. And remember, Wall Street was saying there'll be 6 or 7 cuts this year. There may be one in September. Nobody knows. But the money system, now that they're talking about having a centralized digital currency, you could find me in Costa Rica, Nathan.
Yeah.
I agree.
I agree too. I've been looking there in the Philippines.
I have a lot of friends in Baja. That's a little closer than Costa Rica, but yeah, I agree. I don't want to be anywhere near that either, and I'm not a fan of Jerome Powell either.
Yeah, and I'll buy my silver, I'll buy my gold, and I'll stash it away. But the last thing that I want is the federal government seeing how many bullets am I buying and where am I buying them. That's none of their business.
Right.
We have that issue in California. They passed a law a couple of years ago where now you have to show ID to buy ammo, and it's virtually, the Walmarts used to carry a lot of ammo, and it's virtually gone from there. But you cannot buy ammo in California without showing some kind of an ID, a driver's license.
Interestingly enough, Echo, I read an article about 2 weeks ago, and I think it was in Texas. There's now an automated vending machine that sells ammo. Okay, and it's being placed in a half a dozen different stores. The damn box is probably built like a fortress, but you have to show ID just to show you're over age 18.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting. I had never heard of a vending machine with 9mm slugs.
Yeah, that's gonna be a big money maker for whoever
I'm
came
like,
up with
who
that vending
thought of
machine.
that?
Yeah, that's smart, man. That's
Yeah.
hopefully they have some cages around it so people.
I would think it, but it's a very interesting concept. You might
Right.
want to Google that later on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Invest in that company.
Yeah. Really.
Well, it's probably private.
Yeah.
Would you say we were kind of talking about COVID, and during COVID, what was happening? Speaking of that, what was COVID? What do you what do you think the whole, I mean, there's a pandemic and, they started shutting down and making us stay at home and things like that. But then when that happened, whether that's because there was a real pandemic or whatever, that's irrelevant. But when that happened, a lot of other stuff started taking place. And I know, I can't remember who said it, but they, somebody famous used to say, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Oh, yes. I think that was Kissinger, actually.
Was it Kissinger? That
I
would make
think so.
sense.
I'm not 100% positive.
That would make sense that it would be him saying something like that. So, what do you think that was all about, and was there more behind that?
You know, Nathan, I've read over 100 articles on COVID, and I know enough to be dangerous. Okay. I don't know nearly what I could know to have an intelligent discussion on it. But what I do know is that they came up with the idea of the masks. You remember
Yes,
that?
I do.
And then it came out in the last year that the masks were really ineffective. Okay.
Which
And
some
they
of us knew
also
along
came
all
out
along.
with 6 foot distance. And if you go in an elevator, you still see the plastic cutouts of shoes or feet, 6 feet apart, stand at the edge of the elevator and face the wall, so you don't
Yeah,
breathe on anyone. That whole thing is bullshit as well, because Fauci, I think it was, came out in the last couple months. We thought 6 feet was a good idea, but none of this has scientific basis. Now, I know that you or Echo would have loved to have owned the manufacturing company that came out with the plastic foot cutouts that were glued to all the elevators in the country. Okay.
oh yeah,
They
yeah.
probably made 100 million of those things.
Overnight. Yep.
Or manufacturing masks. Okay. But the thing is that there's always winners and losers in every crisis. Okay. The mom and pops got shut down. I go to the gym 5 days a week. I lift weights, and the gym is closed down, even though the best thing you could probably do is exercise, but they
Yeah,
were all shut down. Okay. But
yeah,
even today, we have all the Clorox wipes there, and which is fine. I agree with that. Okay. Because people sweat and it's disgusting, to pick up some dumbbells when, they got all, who knows what on it. Okay.
yeah. Somebody else's sweat
Yeah.
and grime
Yeah.
on them. Yeah.
But, there's all these unintended consequences, but I wish I was smarter than I am so I could have a thoughtful discussion with you on COVID, but that's not my wheelhouse.
No, that's fine. Um, that's fine. Let's go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be right back here on All Aware, with our special guest Rodger, with his book, Erasing America. We'll be right back.
This is All Aware Podcast with Nathan Roshawn. Like, follow, and subscribe. Help spread awareness. www.allawarepodcast.com.
Okay, so I want to kind of get back to talking more, I guess, maybe a little bit about your book, and how, and kind of what kind of your plan was writing the book. What did you want people to convey from Erasing America, Broken Politics, Broken
I
Country?
wanted more than anything else to raise awareness, okay? Because a lot of people go through their life, they wake up, they have their coffee, they get in their car, they go to work, they come back home, they sit in front of the TV for 5 hours, and then they go to sleep, okay?
Yes,
And
yes,
there's no situational awareness,
yes,
what is going on. They watch reruns of NCIS. Walter Cronkite is long gone.
yes,
And the fact is that I wanted to basically move people off of their couch, get them up and get them involved and do something. So, for example, I moved to this part of Florida about 20 months ago. And what I've done in that time, I joined the Sons of the American Legion. I did not serve, but my dad served in the Rhine Valley and in the Army Air Force at the time. So I joined the Sons, and I was delighted to find out in my first meeting, I said, what are you guys all about? What do you do? He says, Rodger, we raise a lot of money so we can give it all away. No one ever said that to me before. I'm like, that's very, very interesting. And who they give it away to is wonderful. They give it to vets, they give it to kids, they give it to the Special Olympics, you name it, they give it away. And all they do is they keep raising money through all these events and they give it all away. I mean, if you can't get behind that, right?
Yeah.
I also joined 3 Republican clubs in the neighboring towns. I go to their once a month meetings, so that's 3 meetings a month that I go to. I'm heard, I'm informed. I give money to the local candidates for school board, supervisor of elections, Congress, Senate, and the president. I use my money wisely and I give to those causes. And I engage and I have conversations with the candidates. I take pictures with them, put it up on my website, eocritic.com, short for equal opportunity critic. But I get involved, I get off of the couch. Just like anyone else, I like Jethro Gibbs also from NCIS, but I don't gotta sit and watch it every night. Okay.
Yeah.
So I get involved, I get off the couch, and more than anything else, I want people to get involved and get informed because America's in need of fixing. And if we don't fix it, it doesn't get fixed.
Yeah.
It's going to be our generation that has to fix it too. The younger generation isn't going to do it.
The younger generation is clueless.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's gotten to the point where it's all TikTok and whatever the other ones are, Facebook.
I won't even touch TikTok. That's Chinese Communist Party. I won't go near it.
It is, and see, it's crazy because those who are just even slightly aware, who have done any type of research, know that. But there's still millions and millions and millions of people that use it every day and are getting their information sent to Chinese servers.
I would love to see a federal ban on TikTok.
And I think they were trying to do that.
I would love that.
Yeah. I know they during Trump's administration they were talking about that. I don't know where that fell. I don't think it passed, but yeah, that is something. And to go back to what you said about why you wrote the book, to awaken people. That's how it used to be before we had all these distractions. The government ran a lot better because there was more oversight by the people because you had your newspapers, you had, your word of mouth, but, if you even go back 100, even, back into the early 1800s, people would go and serve in the government for a short amount of time, almost like the military.
Then go back to their career.
Then go back to their career. Yes.
And there were independent newspapers.
Yes.
There are not many of those anymore.
Yes. Yep. And I think that is something that we need to get back to. So, I agree wholeheartedly with you on that aspect of things. And I have seen a little bit of motion towards that, but ultimately, we need to do much more. And I think that's why myself, Echo, as well, we decided to start doing podcasts, and getting information out there just because that's what we can do right now.
Right.
And to kind of counteract some of the other stuff out there that's not really angled for the truth, but just angled for where the money is. Follow the money. Well, we are independent guys just coming on here doing this. So we have full-time jobs and do
Right.
things outside
Well,
of this. So
also remember, it's not only the federal government that has lost its mind and gone off the rails. If you followed it at all, DC, and I did live there for 4, 5, 6 years, um, they tried to make it legal. They passed a law where illegals can vote in the local elections. Now, I don't know
yeah,
about you, Nathan. I don't know about you, Echo, but I feel kind of strongly that if you're not a U.S. citizen, you don't get a vote. If you snuck under the fence and you're a janitor at a hotel because you don't speak English and you don't inculcate yourself into the American experience and want to become an American, you don't get a right to vote. And Congress had to slap DC down and say, no, they're not getting the right to vote. Okay. And I
yeah,
wrote about that in my Equal Opportunity Times.
yeah. No,
You,
that
you are you are 100% right, and yeah, Nathan and I we both feel pretty strongly about that too. I mean, if you just look at the 30 million they've let in the last 3.5 years, that's a replacement population. They're
Yes.
yeah,
they're here to replace us at some point because they know how they'll vote. And it's funny because DC falls under the Organic Act of 1871 and 1878. It's a corporate foreign foreign land. It
yeah.
you
It's
know
foreign
I guess it
territory.
I guess if the corporation wanted to allow illegals to vote, um, they couldn't really come out and say it because they would be admitting they'd be admitting that they don't really want people to understand that it's a foreign territory. They keep talking about trying to make DC a state and whatnot, and they just can't do it. But
Yeah, they want DC to be a state and Puerto Rico, and that would tip the scales permanently to the Democrats.
Yep,
yes,
yep, yep.
And DC will vote for any African American candidate, no matter their credentials or their record.
hmm
Yeah, I mean, as we've already saw, years ago, that's what happened there as well.
A side note on that, it's funny because I was listening to a news show that I listened to this morning, and they were talking about Kamala Harris and how she does not qualify to be president. And the lawsuits are lined up right now if
I'm
they
very
were to
happy
go
about
that
that.
direction. And so I don't the host I was listening to this morning, their theory on what's going to happen is they're going to try to cram that through with Kamala, and then she would instantly make Barack the vice president, and then they I guess weasel her out somehow or do something to her nefarious, and then he becomes president again. There's nothing against that in the Constitution, because he's not running for a third time.
And
He
that
was just
that is
appointed.
scary. That is scary as hell.
Hmm.
It is, yeah, it's definitely scary.
Yeah, I
But
hadn't seen that yet, but wow, that's not I mean that would definitely be I could see that plan on their side for sure.
yeah, and like Nathan said, it's what we can do right now. As a Marine, I can't go out and I don't know how much of the Q stuff you followed, but there was a few posts that said remember your oath, and I'm of the opinion that when this is all over with, they're probably going to call guys like me back in some capacity to help out clean this mess up. I mean, you've got 30 million people here legally. That's going to take a lot
I
of
want to see them
of
all
help.
deported.
I firmly believe they will be.
Yeah.
Nothing, in my opinion, though, nothing is going to change as long as people here can still get their Netflix and still get their lattes at Starbucks. They're comfortable. It's going to have to get difficult here and I'm sure your book
You're right.
addresses
There's got to
this.
be a lot of discomfort
Yeah,
to force people to get their asses off the couch and get involved.
Yep.
yes, sir.
Yep. Yep. What did Trump say last year? He started saying it'll take a near-death experience to um, get everybody woke up to what's going on, and I think that's happening right now. Um, what do you guys think?
The Olympics definitely woke some people up.
I saw that with the fourth horseman or whatever, and the
The opening
mockery of
ceremony was that
the
I
Last
didn't.
Supper.
That was disgraceful.
It
Yeah,
was. Yeah,
yeah.
I've seen people on social media the last 2 days blowing a gasket over that, and I'm like, finally, these are the people that have been silent and not doing anything or haven't said anything,
Yeah,
and I'm like, finally, you're outraged
yeah.
enough
I'm trying to
to
shout at the
say
top of
something.
my lungs,
Yes,
and
sir.
I understand I might lose clients that are on the liberal left. This is more important.
Yes, sir. You're right.
Yeah, I think now more than ever, it's a point where you have to pick sides. There's no middle ground. We can't just deflect and just whatever. It's either you're for America, you're for liberty and freedom, and you're for individual governance, or you're for globalist
Nathan, you're absolutely
slavery.
right. Let me ask you a question, Nathan. This is a question that I ask all the time. So if you agree that America is broken, what would you do to fix it?
That is a good question. I would it's pretty involved, but I
Give
guess
me 5 bullet points.
okay.
No soliloquy, just 5 bullet points.
Yeah.
Number one, what would you do?
Number one, I would deport every citizen, or not citizen, every person that came over here illegally to our
Great.
country.
What's number two?
Number two, I would revamp the financial system, including the IRS and the Federal Reserve and the Treasury, and make sure that it's not ran by private corporations and it's ran by the actual government.
Okay, number three.
Number three, I would give back I would deregulate some of the uh, power that's given to the federal government as it pertains to the states and give that back to the states.
Excellent. Number four.
Number
Putting you on the
four.
spot here, Nathan.
Yeah, this is on the spot, guys. I'm just number
Hey,
four.
I'm having a blast.
I know you are. You flipped the script on me here, but I was going to ask you that. Let's see.
Could I give you two to think about?
Yes, let's do that.
Number one, voter ID mandatory in all elections across the nation.
Absolutely.
Number two, finish building the southern wall.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
So I'm going to add those to mine. So there's the five right there.
There's the five.
That's perfect. Echo, what do you think? What would you do?
Well, living on the southern border myself, that's probably number one.
Yeah.
I've witnessed firsthand, and I'm sure Rodger, you have too, living in Florida, the influx coming across
Yes.
down there. But it's bad, and the border
Bad in
patrol
Texas
can't
too.
do anything but round them up and just let them go. So that would probably definitely be number one. Number two, the Federal Reserve thing is a big one for me. Private corporations don't need to be running our money system. We need to go back to constitutional money
Mhm.
and get rid of. It's like Andrew Jackson said, they're a den of vipers, and they need to be routed out, which I think happened a long time ago under the Trump administration. I think we're just watching the show now to wake people up, and because there's a lot of, I'm sure you see it, Rodger. There's a lot of weird stuff that's going on here. I Number three, DC's got to be unincorporated, and the United States Inc. has got to be bankrupted. We need to go back
DC
to
is
constitutional states.
the seat of government. There is no representation. If people
No.
don't like it, let them move out of DC like I did.
Yep.
Exactly.
The den of thieves.
No one told you to move to a place where you don't have representation. So you can't bitch about it that you don't have it. You knew you didn't have it when you moved there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's a pretty good example of, what we would do to save the country. I guess I would pivot and try to ask and Echo, I'm going to ask you this too, but first to Rodger, what has do you see any progress going on as of today that shows that we may be pivoting to where we want to be, where we all have noticed we need to be?
I see pinpoints of light, taking from Bush, right?
Yeah.
Pinpoints of light, great voices like Anna Paulina Luna, who is my congresswoman, Gus Bilirakis, who's a congressman not far from me, Ted Cruz, okay, J.D. Vance, even Nikki Haley. There are a number of voices out there that are reasonable, that say this should not be, instead we should do this. For example, voter ID. How is voter ID racist? I don't get it.
No, yeah,
Okay.
it's not.
Are there old African Americans that can't get a license from the state? Well, then I guess there are old Caucasians and
Right.
Asians also. So I
Exactly.
don't understand how it's racist.
No, it's not. It's just that trigger word, and in society
Trigger
today,
word. You're absolutely right.
right? We see that in society. You throw out a trigger word, and then everybody's behind it because they're afraid to speak their mind and
What
actually
do the
think for
college
themselves.
kids call it? Microaggression.
Microaggressions.
Yeah, I'll give you a macroaggression. How's that?
Wow.
By the way, Nathan, I know that you wanted to know a little bit about how to shut down crazed liberal relatives at holiday dinners.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I actually do have a handout on that. I will send it to you.
Okay.
But here are a couple of items. So you might ask a crazed liberal relative, there's a line out there that says socialism is the path to communism. And they're going to look at you like you're crazy. It's like, huh? And it was said by Karl Marx, okay, which is going to have them double over in pain and probably fall off their chair into the mashed potatoes.
They're Marxists,
Okay?
yeah.
Another thing is, do you think that the federal government should pay for all abortions? We're not a nanny state, okay? Do you think the federal government should provide free college education and free Medicare for everyone who is not a citizen? Okay.
Good
Do you
one.
feel Republicans are hung up on fiscal responsibility? I could go on and on.
Yes. Those are great.
Right. I'll give you one more, just to round it out. Do you believe the federal government should pay for all sexual reassignment surgery?
Mm.
Limited federal government is what
Yes.
we need.
Yes,
Limited
sir.
federal
Thank you very
government.
much, Echo.
They don't need to be paying for any of that stuff.
Yeah, the military shouldn't pay for it either, nor should the
No.
prison. Yes.
Yeah, and they passed. I don't remember what the law was, but it's been a year or so ago. They passed something in California where inmates, I think it was inmates, can get free sex changes.
I wrote about that, and there was like a 80% increase in the incidences of requests for that.
Wow.
Mhm.
It shot up overnight.
Well, I mean that makes sense. If they're gonna, especially if they're serving a long prison term, they may want to partake in certain activities.
Well, Nathan, just think of it. There's a guy named Harold somewhere out there with your beard and mustache, sporting some lipstick, high heels, and stockings, saying, "Call me Glenda."
Oh,
I mean, it gives me chills, and not the good kind.
yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, go ahead, Echo.
Go ahead, Nathan. Oh, I was just going to say, I think the ID thing is coming, Rodger. I do see it change.
I hope so. That'll get rid of a lot of the fraud.
Yeah, this real ID thing they're pushing. I was against it for the longest time, and I wouldn't get one
Right.
because they give you the option to get a passport. You can use your federal passport.
Yeah.
Right.
So I went the route of the passport, but I'm
But
starting
TSA was
to
saying if you
see-
just show your driver's license, if you don't have the new one, you're not getting on the plane.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. I'm starting to see in certain areas that that real ID may be what turns this around. If you don't have one, you can't vote. You can't
exactly
get on a plane. So
now, let me give a plug. Are either of you aware of Judicial Watch?
I have heard of this, yes.
Okay, so I get their newsletter. You could sign up with them. They do phenomenal work. They sue the hell out of the government on the Freedom of Information Act, and they have, sued individual states that have refused to clean up their voter registration rolls, which is a federal law. And so California, New York, North Carolina, and other states have had to take 5 million people in total off the rolls. People that died,
Wow.
people that moved out of the state, people that were in prison, so on and so forth. And they would sue each state when they found out that there were people on the rolls who didn't belong there. Because if you have people on the rolls that don't belong there, that is a doorway to fraud. And it's been proven. So Judicial Watch does a lot of great work. I would support them wholeheartedly.
You said they have a newsletter that you can subscribe to?
Yes, I get the newsletter every month.
Is that on their website then? You just
I get it mailed. I'm a supporter. I give them $100 a year.
Sure.
So they mail it to me, but I'm sure it's on their website.
Sure. And if somebody wanted to order your book, where would they go to order it? Is it Amazon?
I understand that Amazon has it. Walmart.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Target.com has it. It's called Erasing America, Broken Politics, Broken Country. It did actually hit Amazon bestseller status, at least for 48 hours. I don't know. But the other thing is they can go to my website, Critic, like equal opportunity, eocritic.com. They could buy the book on the website. It's a direct link to Amazon. They could also sign up for my twice a month newsletter update called the Equal Opportunity Times. It costs nothing to do so, and it gives you plenty to think about.
That's amazing. Rodger, this has been an awesome episode. Thank you for coming on to the platform today and talking with us about your book and about your thoughts on the erasing of America and what's going on in our country and some things that we can do to fix it.
Nathan and Echo, thank you very much for having me. I truly appreciate it.
It was a pleasure speaking with you, sir. Definitely.
Okay. And Echo, thank you for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Okay.
All right, Rodger. Thanks a lot, sir. Take care.
Okay.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.